I guess it's kind of a melting pot now with the young players that are coming through. I don't think that issue pops up with them. I mean, they just see playing, they see going to school, I think they see their friends. And my grandkids and kids now have friends of all different ethnicities and backgrounds. So I don't think it comes up as much as we might think. You know, I look at it and say, wow, you know, the world has really changed. And from the time I grew up, of course, the first non-African American player I played with was when I came here. Because when I was in high school, growing up in the South, you know, our schools weren't integrated, so we didn't play against white players. So to have a chance to play with Eddie and Sam, and also with the white players on our team at the time, was a total new experience for me.
How do you feel you were accepted by your teammates, your white teammates?
For the most part, good. And I think anything that was negative was not brought to the forefront. And as Eddie said, Coach Dromo was such a good buffer for that. You know, Coach Dromo was the greatest. I mean, he brought us in, treated us like we were just part of the family. And Coach Hickman, of course, was a tough coach and no nonsense kind of guy. He was just tough as they come. But our teammates were just good to us. I mean, if anything negative took place, it was behind the scenes for the most part. So we didn't experience that, or at least I didn't. So, matter of fact, it was pretty much the other way. When we had issues, I thought our guys, and most of whom were from the North, in Chicago and New York and places like that, we had, I guess, very few players from down south. For whatever reason, I don't know. I guess Louisville at the time recruited the Goldsteins, those guys, Judd Rothman, and so a lot of our players were from northern cities, like Rick talked about earlier. So it just didn't. There was no incident on the court. There was nothing away at a restaurant that really affected me, and I don't think Eddie or Sam, because the guys are pretty good to us.
Did you know what you were getting into? Eddie was talking about how if he'd known you were the first class, he might not have done it.
No, I didn't. You know, I thought I was coming up north. You know, I was getting away from the South, to be honest with you. So this is like a whole new experience for me. But I had chances to go to like Tennessee State, Knoxville College, all black colleges, Grambling, places like that, which I was strongly interested in at the time. But then my high school coach got a letter from a guy named Mr. Garner, who was a good friend of Coach Hickman's. They went to school together at Western Kentucky, and Mr. Garner, who ran the post office in Alcoa, where I grew up, wrote Coach Hickman and said, "There's a guy down here you ought to come take a look at." And so he contacted my high school coach, and that's when I came up for a visit, and just had a great visit and spent a lot of time with Coach Dromo. And there were some people in the community who were really good to us. Hankins, a Mammoth Life Insurance Company, guys older gentlemen in the city. Then you had Ernie Green, who was a blocking back for Jim Browns, for the Cleveland Browns, who was graduated a year before we came. Lenny Lyles, Lawrence Broughton, Lee Callan were all football players. So football players were here, which made it much easier, I think, for us, because Howard Turley and those guys and Lenny Lyles had been here in the late 50s and had broken the ground to some degree for us. But basketball was still tough, and going in even the freshman team we played on was a tough deal. We had to go to a lot of small cities throughout the state. So our freshman schedule, which of course was separate because freshmen couldn't play college, couldn't play varsity, to me was kind of eye-opening, going to some of those smaller places that we had to play.
Was Louisville